Good doctor. Yeah.
I pressed record just right before you said.
Stupid doctor. That could be another topic we should do, though, actually, is fear of going to the doctors, because that's pretty common in neurodivergent folks. Hey, that could be a segue to the topic. What is neuroaffirming care?
Why do we even
So-
need an introduction? Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So, hi. So, for example, I've had clients recently that I've had that in assessment reports about being, for part of it was learning, exposure they had before, but the way our medical system is set up, it's not really neuroaffirming. There's not a lot of explaining. There's not a lot of collaboration. It's usually like, the expert telling you what's going on and not listening to you. And so my experience has been that most neurodivergent folks I work with are somewhat medical phobic. I don't know if that's been. So as a neuroaffirming therapist, I know that, and I would acknowledge that, and I would describe a little bit what it is and say, of course, that makes sense. And that said, do you want to do something about that? Do you want to change that? If you want to get a yearly exam because you haven't had one for a long time, how do we approach that? Be very different than a neurotypical client that I would just say, what's going on there? Why haven't you gone to the doctor? You should go to the doctor, right? I mean, my approach would be very different. My assumptions about what's feeding the avoidance would be a lot bigger, or would be way different in either scenario necessarily, right? There's almost always some sort of gaslighting or mistrust, or the provider they haven't had good experience with, or they've asked them to do something or take a medication or do something that they don't agree with and don't want to do. And most Western medicine, if you go back for a follow-up and tell the doctor you weren't doing what they wanted you to do, they're like, well, screw it then, I'm not going to see you anymore. Versus saying, what's going on there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my doctor has been awesome. Because of my adrenal insufficiency, I do have to take a synthetic cortisone every day because my body doesn't make it. And that coupled with menopause can make my cholesterol tick up. So no one in my family has high cholesterol. I've never had it. In fact, my doctor's always been worried that it's too low, and started to tick up. It started to go just above the threshold of where they want to see it. And it finally got to the point where she said, I really want to have you on a statin. I resisted it for a long time. I didn't want to take another medication. I tried a bunch of other stuff to get it lower and it wouldn't go down. The kicker for me was when I started to show some weird numbers on my liver enzymes, which can happen if it's too high, too long. But even then, I talked with my doctor a lot about what different kinds are out there. What are the options? Are you willing to work with me to do the lowest dose I can possibly take to have the same effect? So we started out on what most people's therapeutic dose is, and then we cut it in half. And then she waited 3 months and tested, and we cut it in half, and she waited 3 months and tested. And that's that concierge medicine practice that I go to. That's not typically the case for most people when they're doing that. So of course they're going to be medication or doctor phobic. That's just one example of neuroaffirming care. What ones come up for you that you think of?
Yeah, I mean, Dana, I think the problem that I am seeing out there is that everyone's saying they're neuroaffirming. And I'm like,
they don't know anything.
Wait, but
it's like saying you're trauma informed, you do trauma informed therapy, and then you find out they really have had no training.
You're like neuroaffirming care isn't that you know about neurodiversity. Like that's not neuroaffirming care. So like if I were to say, what is neuroaffirming care? Like if I were to break this down, I would say 1, there is the acknowledgement that this is like being neurodivergent isn't a disease, something to be fixed, a problem,
right?
An infection, and again, this goes back to the biomedical model and the over pathologizing or using pathologizing language. And I know like we talk a lot about language, and people get tired
Mhm.
of being mindful of language. But
Of
language
course.
matters and language is
Yep.
powerful.
Right.
So that is par for the course when I think we're trying to respect
Yeah.
others and seek to respect others. So one, I would say there's this idea and there's an acceptance that
Mhm.
being neurodivergent is not being broken, damaged, or
Yeah.
so
Yeah, can you
there's that
imagine
piece.
if you're saying you're, you do neuroinforming care neuro God, can't talk anymore. Neuroaffirming care, and it's just that you're aware of that it being a thing. I mean, you need to know how it affects someone's daily life in every way to be able to do
Yeah.
neuroaffirming care. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, to your point, Dana, like there's an emphasis on lived experience, right?
Yes.
So this idea of like, okay, um, the first thing is like neurological difference is
Mhm.
expected.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Right.
expected, right? Like we should
Yep.
expect that there should be difference in
That's right.
neurology.
Yeah.
So let's
In a
just
lot
run.
of, I use the word weird, uh, for myself and also in a, playful way.
Mhm.
It's going to be really unpredictable. It's going to seem strange, and it's not something to be pathologized, like you said, to dovetail on
Mhm.
that idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's good. So I think so one, we accept that neurodiversity exists and is
Yeah.
expected. That's like
Right.
one. Two, we respect people's and we actually instead of relying on symptomatology, we rely on people's lived experiences in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I think would be another area. I think the other for me is that instead of just focusing on the person, we're also looking at environments. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not just like their family environment or their home environment, but it's also the community they live in,
Hmm.
maybe the
Hmm.
town that they live in, the school they go to,
Yeah.
how set up is their school or town or systems for difference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
kind of that more social model of disability over there's something wrong with
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
have, many neurodivergent students, and some have come to me and shared their experiences of being marginalized by other faculty,
Mhm.
classmates. There's a lot of that. And if it were someone who weren't neurodivergent came to me and just said, my classmates are picking on me and not being very nice, my reaction to that would be very different. It would be, have you tried to talk to them? Have you journaled what has happened? What's your part in it, et cetera, et cetera. Versus, my neurodivergent students, when they say that's happening, I'm like, yeah, I know it is. I totally get it. Yeah, right. That it is happening, to validate that. And in some ways, instead of telling them, go talk to them and work it out, the focus is more on how can you tolerate
Mhm.
what's happening, not blaming them, but what can you do that helps you, get a buffer for that, right?
Yeah.
And usually it's like I have to let it roll off. I have to get to the point where I'm not going to care about it, and I'm going to pull back a little bit and not be as open about it. And that's the cold, hard reality of it, right?
Yeah.
That to me is a neuroaffirming intervention, and it isn't just pathologizing them and saying what you would say to a neurotypical client to deal with that, right? So that is that. What ponder then? What's their environment like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to that point, it's like and we're not telling people to put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
that like it's like how do we focus on what we can control and what we
Yeah.
can't?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the neuro majority is quite ableistic,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
If
my
you
God.
don't do it
Yeah.
my way or this
Yeah.
way, you are whatever. Fill in the
Yeah.
blank. Not
Yeah.
trying hard enough. You're weird. You don't care.
Yeah.
Whatever, like fill in all whatever negative pejorative, like
Right. Right.
whatever word you want to fill in. And so it's this idea of like be choosier with your environments.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have to go into that environment, which means that you might put on a mask if
Mm-hmm.
if you
Mm-hmm.
choose to,
Mm-hmm.
how much
Yeah.
energy does that take?
Instead of,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. So now it's a efficacy thing. You're
yes,
choosing to. That word is
you're
so important. Yeah.
right. And for some
Yeah.
people, they're like, when I can't choose my job, like I have to go to work. And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
then how do we ensure that there's a routine in place for you to care for yourself? Like,
Right.
what does that look like?
Yeah.
How might we, transition you out of that job into something else, or like
Yeah.
whatever this
Yeah.
is. But I think like uh, so for like there's many facets, right, of neuroaffirming
Hmm.
care, right? So it's the just one, the acceptance that you exist and you're worthy of your
Yeah.
existence
Yeah.
at
You're
this
not
place,
defective. Yeah. Yeah.
right? We focus on your lived experiences, right? We focus on
Hmm.
environments,
Hmm.
as well as yourself, but we have to focus on both. The other
Right.
is that inevitably most of my clients have trauma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just from having grown up so different. Yeah.
Right. So there does need to be some trauma informed work,
Yeah.
and we can maybe get into what trauma informed work is in a different session.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a piece, I think, of like, because trauma is involved,
Hmm.
I inevitably go always back to consent. Can I
Yeah.
do this?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm thinking about this. How are
Hmm.
you feeling? Like, can I push a little bit here?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I'll say my brain is kind of itchy to know this. Are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
like, are you in that space?
Yeah.
Um, do you want my, as a therapist, I want to go here. Do you
Yeah.
want to go
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do a
Exactly.
lot of that
Are you
to
willing? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
do you have the energy for this? Do you
Yeah.
like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so some of my clients, like, we just call it like it's swimming in the shallows day. Like,
Oh,
we're just
yeah.
going to
Yeah.
stay in the shallows today, and it's like, okay.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, let's just trust that you know what you need. And I think
Exactly.
those pieces make neuro affirmed care,
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of someone just saying, "Oh yeah, I know about neurodiversity and I accept everybody." That's
And
just
then they
not
say,
enough.
I actually don't think you're autistic because you make too much eye contact.
Oh, I don't think you're autistic
That's not,
because you're married.
yeah, yeah, you have a job, you're married,
Mhm.
you're articulate. Yeah, you
Uh-huh.
got all A's in school.
You can use a bathroom on your own, and you can
Oh
pay
my
taxes.
God.
Just kidding. Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's
See?
so true. No, I'm not.
There goes my impulsive mouth again.
But you're describing what harm can be done when someone says they're neuroaffirming and then they do those things.
Yeah.
That's not neuroaffirming care,
No.
right? That is meeting someone where they're at. And that, there's a reason they call it a spectrum. It's so different with each
Yeah.
person, and you have to meet them where they're at. And everything you're talking about, you have to recognize from that perspective, right? When I hear clients who are autistic and ADHD have therapists tell them, you just need to get a planner. Or you have to have a rule for yourself that when you're done doing the laundry, you have to put it away. You just can't not do that. You can't not put it away. And I'm like, don't you think if they could do that,
They would.
they'd already be doing it?
Mhm.
And so it isn't about, let's come up with a strategy to have you put away the clothing that you washed and folded. It might be acknowledging you're leaving it in stacks somewhere and you don't like seeing that there because you know it's not put away, but it's okay. There are real barriers for the way your brain is wired to be able to do that,
Yeah.
right? And when someone says, I want to go through my house, my closets, whatever, and just get rid of stuff I'm not using, and from a non-neuroaffirming, from a neurotypical person, and I've done this with folks, I'm like, all right, anything that you go through in your closet, if you haven't worn in the last year, you get rid of. And that works on a neurotypical client almost always. A neurodivergent client, the story goes more like this. Well, I went in there, I saw how much was in there, I got overwhelmed, I didn't know where to start. But if I did start, I picked up this one item and there's so much sentimental value, or I might wear this again, or reminds me of all these things, or my slacks are going to be sad. The anthropomorphizing, I've done that too. They're going to be sad if I don't keep them. If you had someone who was a non-neuroaffirming therapist, they'd be laughing at them, or they'd be vilify, what is wrong with you? You're
Yeah.
resisting. You're just coming up with silly stories to not do what you need to get done. That would be so harmful. Rather than, given how your brain works, what can, if you want to set some goals, do you want to set some goals?
Right.
Is the goal getting used to the piles, even though they're organized, somehow accepting that? Or is it you'd want to work on something like every Monday when you're seeing me, you take one off the top, and I'll start the session that way. I'll wait, take one thing off the top of your pile and
Yep.
go hang it up. I mean,
Yep.
that could be a goal, right?
Well, yeah, the question is like, is it your goal?
Assuming they want to do it. Yeah, if it's my
Right.
goal,
Like, is it
forget it.
someone else's? No, like
Yeah,
I have a lot of adult kids that live with their parents.
yeah,
And they'll say,
yeah.
Gwen, I really need to work on this. And I'm like, you want to, or you're being told that you
Or
need to?
yeah, 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 yeah,
So,
yeah,
but it's not uncommon for a client to be like, Gwen, I really need to start writing this paper. And
mhm.
I don't, and it's like, you want me to help you with that? Like,
Yeah.
I can,
I can
but
help.
yeah, but
Yep,
then you might just be sitting here. Okay,
that's good. Yep,
great.
yep, yep,
Let me know. Like,
yep.
let me say, I giggled when you said, and then my pants are going to be sad. And then I giggled not because I'm laughing at the person,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
because I hear this so often and it's so funny. And so
yeah,
my reflection there is always like, wow,
yeah.
I can see why you haven't
That would really
gotten rid
make
of
it
anything.
hard. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Like,
Yeah,
wow,
absolutely.
that makes a lot
Yeah,
of like that
yeah,
makes sense to me why you
yeah,
might have a difficult time.
yeah.
You're right.
Or
And
I'll have a
and
client tell me, objects hold energy of previous owners,
I
and I
know.
feel
I
that,
know.
and then I'll say, "Wow, that's fascinating. Tell me more about that." And then, "Oh my God, how would you ever get rid of anything if you can feel all that and you feel like your role is to be a guardian for that?"
Yes.
That you have to know that that's the case for those people. I can't imagine like a psychoanalytic person hearing this and being like, "I'm gonna write in my little book
Well,
about
you
how
would
crazy
never
you
see
are,"
them right
right?
because they'd be behind you on a
Because they'd be behind you. You can hear the scribbles. The scribbles would be louder. You'd hear the underlining and yeah. Oh my God. Oh God.
I
Yeah.
think like it's so interesting because I see myself in many ways as someone who like helps with strategies,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
but only helping with strategies when the
Yeah.
person wants a strategy,
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Otherwise, it's witnessing the struggle if it's there. I
Yeah.
do have a client that struggles with that, but also really gets distracted and has a bad felt sense to clutter. It's a real
Mhm.
bind. How do
Yeah.
we deal with that and the clutter intolerance at the same time? And we had to talk about that a lot.
Which is
Yeah.
really it's actually that is very common.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
I get overwhelmed by visual clutter
Hmm.
and I really struggle to maintain
Yeah.
clutter.
Exactly.
That is like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm always like, well, we got to develop some rules
Hmm.
for your
Hmm.
clutter
If you want to, if that's a goal for
if you
you.
want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Right.
and it's
Exactly.
like and what happens in so many ways I'll say to parents like, listen, eventually it gets there, but they have to reach a certain threshold
Hmm.
for them to initiate an action. So for
Yeah.
them, it's like the room has to get to a certain place before they're like, okay, now I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have the framework to do this now. And
Right.
that's just
Right.
the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I was last week, uh we use dishwasher pods, those little
Hmm.
pod.
Hmm.
And I there was like three left in the bucket.
Hmm.
And this is my neurodivergent brain. Got out a new one. I put the new one underneath, didn't open it, put the old one on top. I didn't
Yeah.
want to put the new pods in with the old pods in with the new one because I'm like, you gotta, rotate stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
edible. I'm being in hindsight, it's kind of ridiculous. So I go under there and I see that my wife has opened the one underneath. And to my brain, I'm like, what the why what? Why
Yeah.
didn't you just I didn't see about a thing on the top. And I noticed that there were so few in there it had gotten knocked down and was like in the back of the cabinet. So she couldn't see it. And I said, "Oh no, I put it on top. I wanted to go through the older ones first." And she, bless her, she just goes, I'm really sorry." And I said, "No, no, no, it's okay. I wanted to understand. I understand now you didn't see them on top." Like in my mind, I thought somehow she was deliberately not using the one on the top.
Right.
But that wasn't enough for me. That I would have been stuck in that being non-neuroaffirming to myself
Yeah.
and would have been just sort of like, well, that's just stupid. Why didn't she see that? What I got to last week was I could tell it was a little bit upsetting to her. And my standards are not imposed on her. I shouldn't do that. That'd be like a parent saying you should do it this way. And I finally just said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's just my need for things to go a certain way. And me asking you to do it that way isn't fair to you. And then I could see she just went, oh, okay, thank you. And she said, no, and I understand if you wanted me to do the old ones first. And if they had been on there, I could see why that was upsetting to you, but I didn't see they were there. And it was just this, it sounds so benign, but it was so important, right? It was
Yes.
so much her seeing me from a neurodivergent lens, me seeing her from a not neurodivergent lens, and being like, I can't impose my way of doing everything
Right.
on this other human. It's not
Right.
fair any more than
Right.
I would want her to do it to me.
Right.
So even in the therapy, you're like, if you're living with your parents or you've got a partner or it's in these internalized selves that can't handle the two polar opposites that are pulling in different directions in your own psyche, we have to kind of figure out a way for those to talk to each other,
Yeah.
literally or figuratively. Yeah.
Literally and figuratively and
Mhm.
relationally in
Yeah. Yeah.
many ways. It's so funny as you were talking about the pods.
How to load the
I
dishwasher is a big one that comes up too.
100%. Or like eggs. Like
Oh,
so I have to refill the egg thing, and it's like I always
oh.
shift like the old eggs to the front,
Yeah,
and
that I
then I
was
put the
doing that
new
with
eggs
dishwasher pods,
in
which
the
is
bag
ridiculous.
back. I was
Yeah.
thinking of this. So I
Yeah.
always grab from the front. Mind you, I'm the only
Yeah.
one that really cooks in my house. So like it so I know to grab them from the front. But in the dishwasher pod situation, this is where my brain went. I was like, okay, I would take the dishwasher pods out and there's only 3. So I just leave them outside of the container and put them on
Like
top.
on top. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
however, that could be visually difficult.
And
So
what if they fall off?
here's what I would
Yeah.
do. I would fold a paper towel, put the 3 on the paper towel, put them inside the new container, but
Oh, yeah. Oh,
block
so
the
there's a
other ones.
barrier. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Block the other ones so it's very clear that those are
Yeah.
the 3 to go. And then you
Yeah.
could just throw away the paper towel. That's
I've done that
exactly
with
where I went.
medications where I've stuffed a cotton ball in there so they're
Yeah,
separated.
right.
And then I put the,
Like,
yeah, because I don't,
like the old ones need to go. I can really
yeah.
relate to this.
Oh,
Or like
God.
when
Yeah.
I have to refill flour or something, I'll dump out the old flour, I'll put in the new
Yes.
flour, then I'll put the old flour on top.
Yeah. But that, see, what I realized was it's a dishwasher pod. And
At the end of the day, it's not going to get bad,
yeah,
even if it got used in 4 weeks versus
right.
the next day.
And really the
Mhm.
kicker for all of this was her saying, I'm sorry. And I was like, oh God,
Oh, oh
I am
God.
being completely unreasonable. That's I didn't want to have her feel that way. And I'm like, you are so right. I am being annoying. This is annoying, right? She'd be the first to agree with something like rotating food because she wouldn't want
Sure.
to, one day crack an egg open and that's the one that keeps escaping and it's like 3 years old in there.
You're like, wow, this yolk is
Yeah,
no
yeah,
color anymore.
yeah. But
Uh,
before I could be neuroaffirming to myself, before I even
yeah.
knew I was autistic or neuroaffirming, that would have spun me all day long. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
said anything. I would have been like, she's mad at me. Now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I think, and it would have built up this whole story about how I was right and she should have known not, so you could see how sideways something can go if it's not in a neuroaffirming lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be mindful, everybody. Not
Yeah.
everyone, a lot the word neuroaffirming is out there all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, you know, just because someone says they're neuroaffirming doesn't necessarily mean they are. And
Hmm.
again,
Hmm.
this is like these would be our definitions of what we think neuroaffirming is.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but eh, I think Dana, to your point, being neuroaffirming to yourself first
Hmm.
is necessary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That narrative, that
Yeah.
self narrative is so critical because man, it happens so
Hmm.
fast. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
It
really
really does.
reflexive of that
Oh, yeah.
information. So,
Big time.
okay. All right, everyone. On that note, be good to you and be good to others, and we will catch you in the next app. The bit Next
That's a
episode.
good level.
What's up? Bye.